Hey, it's David with Beat Your Face Commander. This deck tech is going to be Toski, Bearer of Secrets. So I built this deck for my son who is learning how to play Magic. The deck is fairly simple and straightforward, but still works pretty well. So Toski is a 1/1 indestructible squirrel that can't be countered. He attacks each turn if able, and then whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to player, draw a card. So the goal of this deck is to swing with big stuff that have trample and get draw a bunch of cards. So him and I have played this a few times. He's done really well with it. So I hope you enjoy this deck tech. First of all, there's a few artifacts to go along with Toski. We've got Dolmen Gate. Dolmen Gate prevents all combat damage that would be dealt to attacking creatures you control. To pump up creatures, I also have Blackblade Reforged. Equipped creatures get +1/+1 for each land you control. And Colossus Hammer. Equipped creatures lose flying, but get +10/+10. Right. I run a few Planeswalkers in this deck. I've got Garruk, Savage Herald. His +1, reveal top card of your library. If it's a creature card, put it into your hand, otherwise put it on the bottom. -2, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to another target creature. And -7, its alt is until end of turn, creatures you control gain you may have this creature assign its combat damage as though it weren't blocked. So it'd be nice if I did get to the alt with this. However, that -2 is a good way to remove enemy threats. I'm also running Vivian, Champion of the Wilds. You can cast creature spells though they had flash. To the +1 is until your next turn, up to one target creature gains vigilance and reach. And -2, look at the top 3 cards of your library, exile 1 face down, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. For as long as it remains exiled, you may look at that card, and you may cast it if it's a creature card. Then finally, for Planeswalkers, I've got Nissa, Who Shakes the World. 4 is tap for an additional 1 green mana. Its +1 is to put 3/1 counters on up to one target non-creature land you control. Untap it, and it becomes a elemental with vigilance and haste. It's still land. And then its alt is you get an emblem with lands you control have indestructible. Search your library for any number of forest cards, put them on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle your library. This is one of the few Planeswalkers that I actually actively try to alt. Alright, some supporting spells. We've got some Cultivate for Mana Ramp. Crow's and Grip to destroy target artifact or enchantment in a split second. Roiling Regrowth, more ramp. Wild Pairs and Enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, you may search your library for a creature card with the same total power and toughness and put it onto the battlefield. If you do, shuffle. It's pretty powerful. 3 visits, mana ramp. Colossal Majesty's card draw. Garruk's Uprising gives your creatures trample, and there's card draw as well. Rabid Bite lets you deal damage to target creature equal to a creature's power you control. Kodama's Reach, more ramp. Triumph of Ferocity. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card if you control the creature with the greatest power or tied for it. There's some really big hitters in here, so that will most likely hit. Aggressive Instinct, again, lets you deal damage equal to a creature's power to another target creature you don't control. Blanchwood Armored pumps up your creature for each force you control. Rampant Growth for some mana ramp. Gravity Well takes away flying from other creatures. Or it takes away flying from creatures. Since this is a mono green deck, there is no flying. Ram Through, same thing. Lets you deal damage to target creature. Or lets one of your creatures deal damage to target creature. And if that creature has trample, it does the excess damage to that creature's controller. Clear Shot. Target creature gets +1/+1 to end a turn. And then does this damage to a target creature you don't control. Beast Within lets you destroy a target permanent and give them a 3/3 green beast creature token. And then Heroic Intervention gives permanents you control hexproof and indestructible time to turn. So those are the support spells. There's quite a bit of non-creature ramp, but there's also a lot of creature ramp too, and other big things in here, like Primal Crux. Its power and toughness are equal to your devotion to green. As this is a mono green deck, potentially he can get real big real fast. Starts off as a 6/6. Farhaven Health for some mana ramp. Gigantosaurus is a 10/10. Omnath, Locust of Mana. Green mana does not empty from your mana pool as steps and phases end. And he gets +1/+1 for each green mana in your mana pool. Wood Elves for some more ramp. Thrashing Bronodon, you can sacrifice to destroy target artifact or enchantment. Manowar Elves, mana ramp. Caustic Caterpillar, you can also sacrifice to destroy an artifact or enchantment. Rex Sage destroys an artifact or enchantment when it comes into play. Giant Adaphage is a 7/7 trampler that creates a token of himself whenever he does damage to a player. Leafkin Druid for ramp. Drove of Elves is hexproof and has power and toughness equal to the number of green permanents you control. Titanith Rex is an 11/11 trampler. You can cycle for a green and a generic. When you do, you can put a trample counter on a target creature you control. The Tarask, he has Ward 10 as long as it was cast. And whenever he attacks, it fights target creature defending player controls. So you get to pick targets. Springbloom Druid for ramp. Savala, Heart of the Wild. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, its controller may draw a card if its power is greater than each other creature's power. Then you can tap a forest and add X mana in any combination of colors where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. So heavy mana ramp. And some card draw. Alana, Kestig Ranger. It's a 3/4 with reach. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 2. When you do, that creature deals damage equal to its power to target creature. So a good source for removal. World Spine Worm. Although it costs 11, it's a 15/15 trample. Then when it dies, you get 3 5/5 worm creature tokens with trample, and then it shuffles into your library. Crows and Drover, reduce the creature cost with convert mana cost 6 or more by 2. Galandra is a mana dork that you can draw cards whenever you cast creatures with convert mana cost, whenever you cast a spell with convert mana cost of 6 or greater. In this case, it's going to be a creature. Findlehorn Elves is a mana dork. Mana Gorger Hydra gets bigger every time a player casts a spell and has trample. Garruk's Pack Leader, whenever another creature with power 3 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. Vorapede is a big old 5/4 with vigilance and trample, as well as Undying, but that's less important in this deck. Aggressive Mammoth is an 8/8 that gives other creatures you control trample. Keeper of Fables lets you draw cards whenever a non-human creature you control deals combat damage to the player. Primeval Protector, he costs 1 less to cast for each creature your opponents control, and then when it enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on each other creature you control. He's a big old 10/10. And in a 4-player game, potentially he could be relatively cheap to cast. Sakura Tribe Elder, sack him for some mana. Thrasta Tempest Roar costs 3 less to cast for each other spell cast this turn. He has Trample and Haste. And he can trample over Planeswalkers. As he also has Hexproof the turn he entered. Okay. Tireless Provisioner, landfall lets you create treasure tokens. I really don't create food tokens. But, I mean, you could. I just don't. Galta Primal Hunger. He costs X less, where X is the total power of creatures you control. It's a 12 total trample. Beast Whisperer lets you draw a card whenever a creature spell's cast. Lotus Cobra. More mana ramp. As is Elysian Caryatid. Manowar Tribe. Crash of Rhino Beetles is 5/5 with trample and gets +10/+10 as long as you control 10 or more lands. So some pretty decent upside. Gorkaw, Terror of Kalsisma. Creature spells you cast at power 4 or greater cost 2 less. And then whenever you attack, each creature you control at power 4 or greater gets +1/+1 in trample. Oran-Reef Hydra is a landfall trampling Hydra that gets +2 +1/+1 counters whenever a forest enters the battlefield. This deck only runs forest, so he's going to get big quick. And Verdant Sun's Avatar, whenever he or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. And then just to round it out, legitimately, all I play in this deck are basic forest. It's simple to pilot, it's a lot of fun, and it is a good beginner's deck that covers all the bases in terms of ramp, removal. Doesn't board white, but it's not really supposed to. So this is Toski, Bearer of Secrets. I hope you enjoyed the deck tech.